Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today is my favourite video to film in the whole year, and that is my favourite reads of 2020. First of all, can we just admire this cat jumper, which my amazing mother-in-law made for me. She knitted this for me and I'm basically living in it because it's a cat jumper. What else do I need? It's also super soft, and this probably sounds a bit weird, I haven't washed it yet and it smells like her, which makes me like oddly homesick because I haven't seen her properly since the start of the year. So yeah, just thought I'd give a little shout out to my cat jumper. Thank you very much, Christine. So yeah, today I'm going to talk through my favourite reads of the year. The last 2 years I have also done my most disappointing reads of the year, but I feel like 2020 has been negative enough without me putting more negativity into the world. And also at the point of filming this, I read almost 180 books this year, which is just ridiculous. I've never read that much in my life before. And I've only had 2 really disappointing reads, so I didn't really have enough to make a video with, which was great because I've clearly been able to pick well this year. So I'm going to talk you through my 11 favourite reads of the year, and then I've got 3 books that could be my December favourite read, which obviously I don't know yet, and you guys can guess which one it will be, and then that will obviously be my December wrap up. I know some people think that you should do this kind of video like in January, but there's something that I like about starting fresh in January. I don't want like 2020 content aside from my December wrap up in my January content. Does that make sense? We're gonna go. So just quickly, in order to qualify for this list, I pick 1 book from each month because I can't do a top 10 or a top 5. I can't rank these. I'm not doing that. It's too hard. In order to qualify, I need to have given it either 4 or 5 stars, to have stayed with me, and also not be a reread. So rereads don't count. And with that in mind, I do have a couple of like honourable mentions that I wanted to give before we get into the official like favourite reads of the year. The first of those was The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. I reread this in August. I haven't shut up about it since. I absolutely adored it. This copy was gifted to me by Marianne from Copper Books, so thank you so much, Marianne. This edition is glorious. I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars, but it was a reread, so it couldn't be included on this list. But if you like historical fiction, if you like mysteries, if you like kind of family dramas, sorry about the noise, read this. It was amazing. I will definitely be rereading it probably at the start of 2021. Read it. Another book that I loved, but there was another book that month that I just loved that a little bit more, was Far From the Tree by Robin Benway. I buddy read this with Charlotte from Books and Bargains, who I think also maybe gifted me this copy. I think she sent me this. Can't find the label. We buddy read this and absolutely smashed my heart to bits, made me sob, absolutely loved it. It's about 3 siblings who don't know their siblings. They've been adopted as little babies or as kids, and they come back together again, and it's basically their story. It's a contemporary. Loved it. Again, I would really recommend this one. It was beautiful. It was just slightly put to the post by another one. And then another book that again I thoroughly enjoyed, and I think who gifted me this one? Yeah, Anne from Rooting Branches. She's got a bookstagram and a blog that I will link in the description. Was Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. I also read Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I'm in love with the Brown sisters. I can't wait for the 3rd book, which is the Eve Brown. Is it Grow Up or something? I can't remember what the title for that one is. I'm very excited for that. These books are not my kind of thing. They are contemporary romances, which if you've been watching my channel, you know is not really in my wheelhouse. But I read Get a Life, Chloe Brown, mostly just to shut up Charlotte because she wouldn't stop talking about it. And then I fell in love with it. I actually preferred Danny Brown, which is why I'm mentioning it, this one. But there was another book. I think I read this in October. And there was another book that month that just slightly pipped it. But I did want to just mention these 3 because I thoroughly enjoyed them this year and would highly recommend these 3. Okay, we're already 5 minutes into the video and I've got a stack of books here to talk to you about. So we're going to go in month order because, like I said, I cannot and will not put these into any kind of order other than that. So for January, my favourite read of January was It Only Happens in the Movies by Holly Bourne. Oh, I really love this book. As you'll know, I'm a massive Holly Bourne fan. I've read almost everything she's ever written. This is a YA contemporary about a girl called Audrey who gets a job at a cinema. She meets a boy called Harry, and it kind of goes from there. But what I really loved is it kind of takes that trope of boy meets girl, girl falls in love with boy breaks girl's heart, girl accepts it, either accepts it and they live happily ever after, or girl wallows for the rest of her life over her broken heart, and it flips it around. I thought this was so clever. I think it's probably one of my favourite Hollyborns. You've got some really great mental health rep in here, as you always get with Hollyborn. Audrey's also dealing with the fact that her father has left her mother and is starting a new family with his new girlfriend. There's just a lot going on in here, and I was really rooting for Audrey all the way through. Thought it was wonderful, and obviously because it's in this video, one of my favourite reads of the year. Next in February for me was The Alibi Girl by CJ Scoos. We all know of my love for CJ Scoos on this channel. And this was her first adult standalone that I'd read. So I've obviously read and talked loads about the Sweet Pea series, and this was a standalone, and I saw it released. I saw a mention of it on Twitter about a week before it was released and pre-ordered it, which I hardly ever do. It then arrived and I read it, I think, in one day, and then also sent a copy to Charlotte that day because I was like, you need to read this. So I'll just read you a little bit at the back. It says, Joanne Hayes has a secret that is not her real name. And there's more. Her flat isn't hers, her cats aren't hers, even her hair isn't really hers. So we're just following this girl, Joanne, and I guess it's technically a thriller, but it's more of a contemporary mystery, I think, because we're trying to work out why Joanne is hiding, who she's hiding from, and what's gone on in her life. And I thought this was really clever. This was actually, I was not expecting it to be as emotional as it was, and I just thought it was brilliantly done. So that was definitely going to be on this list. Next was a chunk of a book. It's historical fiction, which we all know I enjoy a bit of historical fiction. I think there's also at least one other in this stack that would count as historical fiction, and that was Life After Life by Kate Atkinson. I buddy read this with Simone from Me, Simone and I, because I think I saw a video where she was talking about books that she was intimidated by. I was just checking if it was gifted, but I think I bought this one. Yeah, she mentioned, I think in a video, that she was intimidated by it because it's massive. How big are you? And I just messaged her and said, do you want to buddy read it? Because it sounded like something I'd be interested in. Yes, it's 620 pages. She's big. And basically it's looking at what would happen if you could do your life over again. So we're in London, in England, during the war. So I'll read you a little bit at the back because that would probably explain it better. What if you had the chance to live your life again and again until you finally got it right? During a snowstorm in England in 1910, a baby is born and dies before she can take her first breath. During a snowstorm in England in 1910, the same baby is born and lives to tell the tale. What if there were second chances and third chances? In fact, an infinite number of chances to live your life. Would you eventually be able to save the world from its own inevitable destiny, and would you even want to? So this was so cleverly crafted, I think is the only word for it. So cleverly written and woven together, and we go through the First and Second World Wars with this family, following one girl. I can't remember what her name is, which is terrible, but I did read this in March. This is March's pick. And you just get... No, I can't. It's not gonna tell me quickly. Yeah, and you just get all these different perspectives of what could have happened. And it's to do with, like I said, mostly the Second World War. So parts of this are very, very brutal. So please check the content warnings before you pick it up. But I just loved the way it was done. I've been meaning to pick up more Kate Atkinson all year, and I haven't actually managed it. So if you can recommend me another one of hers, please do. 'Cause she's one of those authors where there's so much to choose from. I don't really know where to start. So if you can recommend me another one, please do. I thought it was beautiful. Highly recommend. Then in April, I read a book that's pretty weird, that I have encouraged a few other people to read, but wouldn't encourage everybody to read. And if I had to, if somebody put a gun to my head and made me pick a top 3, this would be in it. That's Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Bazterrica. Yeah, this is about cannibalism. So this is translated fiction, and the author is, I think, Brazilian, and this is set in the world, Argentinian, sorry. This is set in a world where animal flesh can no longer be consumed because it's poisonous, and so society has authorised the production of what they call human meat. And we follow a man that works in an abattoir, bearing in mind it's not cows that he's slaughtering, it's humans. And this is probably one of the weirdest things I've ever read. Also, it was beautiful. I read this in one day. I just could not put it down. I was about to say I devoured it, but that feels a little bit like near the mark. And it's one of those books, it's very short, and it's one of those where you are introduced to this like horrific thing that's going on. And the first 50 pages I was like, this is about cannibalism, this is about cannibalism, this is about cannibalism. And then the story kind of moves away from that and it's more about loneliness. And then the ending, like the ending, yeah, I'm definitely reading this at some point. I just thought it was stunningly done. I can't find anything else by this author that's been translated into English, but as soon as there is, I will be reading it. Because I just thought it was stunning. So yeah, there was really only one book that I could pick for April, and we've got quite a range of books here, and this one is a cannibalism book. So there we go. Then in May, my favourite read of May was Middle Game by Shauna Maguire. Now, Shauna Maguire is an author I really enjoy. I've read their, what is it called? The YA series? Wayward Children series. Really enjoy those. This was the first full-length novel that I'd read from them, and it's an odd one, and I don't really know how to explain it to you. We've got a pair of twins, Roger and Dodger, who are separated at birth, and when they're about 7, I think, they realise that they can communicate. Is it telepathic? Yeah, telepathically they can communicate to each other, and it kind of goes from there. And I'm not really going to say any more. It's quite a big one. I think it's 500 or 600 pages. Yeah, just under 500 over 500 pages. Once you've read it, this cover becomes even creepier than it is if you haven't read it. And I thought it was wonderful. I really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. It's not really my normal thing because I think it would technically be sci-fi fantasy, and those genres aren't usually ones you'll find me picking up, but I really enjoyed this. Please check the content warnings before you pick it up because it is brutal in parts. It's most definitely adult. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't usually read and enjoy hyped booktube books, but this was one of those that really worked for me. Then in June I read The Deep by River Solomon. This is the polar opposite of Middle Game. Middle Game is huge, The Deep is tiny. How long are you? Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this, obviously, because it's on this list. Yeah, this is just over 160 pages. So I think, again, I'll read the back because it's been a little while since I read it, and also I don't want to describe it wrongly. So, Yitu holds the memories of her people, water-dwelling descendants of pregnant African slave women thrown overboard by slave owners who live idyllic lives in the deep. Their past, too traumatic to be remembered regularly, is forgotten by everyone, save one, the historian. This demanding role has been bestowed on Yitu, and I'll stop there because I don't want to give spoilers. So this is such a beautifully written book, and it's about grief and pain and generational trauma and the responsibility of that. And I just found it to be really powerful, and I would really recommend it. River Solomon is a beautiful writer. I really need to pick up more from them. And again, if you can recommend to me like where to start, because they have got quite a few books and novellas and things. So yeah, if you can recommend me something else from them, please do, because I will definitely pick it up. I really love this copy. There's also an edition, I think it's an American edition, that's got like the most beautiful scales on it. But there's something about this copy, this edition, that's just really haunting. And yeah, it's definitely one that I keep coming back to. I keep thinking about it. So if you've been thinking about picking it up, I would highly recommend that you do. Next, we had in July. Okay, so this was another really hyped book. So I think I've had there's 3 or 4 books in the stack that are like Booktube darlings. So this book, which I read with Leanne and Simone, Leanne Simone, we buddy read over the summer. This was the perfect like summery read, but I was really nervous to pick it up because I absolutely loved another book by this author. I think was probably, if I'm being honest, my favourite read of 2019. So I was doing that thing where I was like, oh, I'm scared to pick something up by this author, a different thing, because I loved that so much. And then Simone and Leanne were like, do you want a buddy read? I was like, yeah, let's do that. And that book is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I just thought this was so brilliantly done. Simone also gifted me this copy. And this is just following a make-believe. It's not a real band in the 60s, and it's told in interview format. Someone is interviewing the band about their experiences of how they got really famous and then the reason why they broke up. And I just thought it was so brilliantly done. And given that it's got very little description, at the start of each chapter you get a little like paragraph or so of like, this was the year and this is where the band was, and then it goes into the transcripts. So everything is like that. And given how little description you get, I think she just managed to create in my head these people so well. And yeah, and also it's one of those, again, with Taylor Jenkins Reid, because the same happened to me with Evelyn Hugo. You get to the end and you're suddenly like, oh, you suddenly realise what you've been reading, and I just thought it was brilliantly done. So again, if you've been thinking about picking this up, do it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Then in August, I had another book that's not really my kind of genre, but She Is Such a Lauren did a giveaway, I can't remember what for, and I won it. It might have been her 500 subscriber giveaway, something, and I won her giveaway. And she asked me which books I would like, and I was like, here is my wish list, just pick some stuff. And she sent me Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nagan. And this is a book that I'd heard a lot about on BookTube, but it's a fantasy book, which isn't really usually my bag. Read it, absolutely loved it, and I need to pick up the second one, but I'm slightly scared too because I love this one so much, and I love the romance. There's a female romance in this, and I'm really scared that if I read the next book, something bad's going to happen to them. So this is set in a world where there are 3 casts of people. There are, I can't remember what the casts are, but it's basically demons, half demons, and humans. And humans are at the bottom, they are the paper caste. And every year the Demon King takes 8 girls to be his concubines, 8 human girls to be his concubines at the palace. And this year he takes a 9th girl, and we follow Lay, who is the 9th girl, into the palace, into the world of being a concubine. She meets another girl there, and it kind of, things happen from there. I thought this was just stunning. It really like swept me away. I loved the world building. I thought it was really cleverly done. I really need to pick up the next book. Someone pushed me into picking up the next book. I'm just scared that characters I love are gonna, bad things will happen. Also, please check the content warnings for this book because it's pretty brutal in places. And another cover that's just glorious. Okay, then in September I read Don't Touch My Hair by Emma Dabiri. This was gifted to me by Aoife from Words of Clover. This is a very short non-fiction book that looks at racism from the angle of hair. Emma Dabiri is a black Irish woman, and I just thought this was so brilliantly done. Sometimes non-fiction can be a little bit dry, and this is most definitely not. This has got like Emma's sarcastic sense of humour running through it all the way through, which I really liked, but it's also really fascinating. She looks at the science behind why black hair is different to European hair. She looks at the different ways that black people have been discriminated against because of their hair through the years. Also how black slaves used to use their hair to like leave coded messages for each other and give maps and all kinds of things like that. It was just really fascinating. I love the tone of her writing. She's got another book coming out next year, which I think is called, I think it's what white people can do next or do now, something like that. I've already pre-ordered it. I'm really excited for it. So yeah, if you are looking for non-fiction, or if you want to read kind of some anti-racism books, I would really recommend this one. Like I said, it's short, but it's informative, and it's got this really like nice tone running through it as well that made it really readable, so I'd highly recommend that one. Then in October we've got another non-fiction, and that is The Five by Hallie Rubenhold. I have heard so much about this book this year. I think it came out this year. I was actually gifted 2 copies. So Senga by Nature, who's on Instagram, gifted me a copy, and also Elle from No Book Given on Instagram gifted me a copy, one of which has been re-gifted to somebody else. I'm pretty sure this came out this year. And basically, as you can see from the front, the untold lives of the women killed by Jack the Ripper. Now, I really like reading some true crime, but I do have an issue with the fact that true crime is often kind of promoting the perpetrator of the crime, whereas this I loved because it's nothing to do with Jack the Ripper. It's about the women, and I felt like by the time I'd finished reading it, I really knew these women as well as you could know someone from Victorian times. And it was just a really fascinating kind of social commentary on what life was like at the time, how these women ended up where they did, how they became victims of the Ripper. And what I really liked is it does talk about, so it talks about their whole lives, so you kind of get a bit of background on their parents and then these women's whole lives, obviously up until the point where they're murdered, and the murders are mentioned but very briefly, and then it kind of skips forward into what the effect was on their family and where they were buried and the effect on the community. And I just like that Jack the Ripper is not, he's barely mentioned, he's definitely not front and centre in this, and I thought that was handled so well. It's quite emotional. Again, check the content warnings before you pick it up because it's very brutal in places, does not hold back. But yeah, I absolutely loved this, and I will definitely be reading more from this author. It is also non-fiction. It's quite long, but it does read like fiction. I had to keep reminding myself that these were real women living real lives. So yeah, highly recommend. Then in November, my favourite read of November, and again, a bit like Tender as the Flesh, if I had to pick 3, this would definitely be in my top 3, but I couldn't like put them in any more order than that. And that was Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. I adored this book. I've heard mixed things, and I can see why some people would or would not get on with it. I heard about this book, I think at the start of the year, and it sounded like a book that had been written for me, which then put me off reading it, which it always does because I get the fear that I'm not going to love it. Eventually I got over myself, bought myself this gorgeous copy, and also I'm going to show you the naked hardback because it is beautiful. Got over that and picked it up, and I'm so glad that I did. Look at this. I mean. So this is a historical fiction book, all about, it basically takes the historical fact that William Shakespeare had a son called Hamnet who died when he was 11, and it builds a whole narrative around that historical fact. And it's just beautiful, it's heartbreaking, it's very much about grief and parental grief and family grief and heartache. And it's also this kind of, a bit like The Five, it's kind of a social commentary as well on the way that women were treated, on the role of men, and it's just so beautifully done, and it was exactly what I was hoping for. It was a book that was written for me, and I'm so glad that I got over myself and read this book this year because I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I will definitely go back to it. If you like historical fiction, if you like family dramas, if you like Shakespeare, pick this up because it's probably for you as well. And then I'm now filming this at the start of December, as I've already said. I've got 3 books that I think could be my favourites of the month. So we're going to very quickly whip through them because I've already been talking for 22 minutes. And you guys can tell me in the comments which one you think it is, and then we'll see if any of us are right. I've got a thought on which one I think it will be, and then we'll see if we're right when I do my December wrap-up. So the first one is Dead Girls by Abigail Tartellin. This is a thriller, and it's been highly recommended by Leanne at Literary Diversions. She mentions it all the time. Was I gifted this or did I buy it? No, actually Leanne gifted this to me, I think. I'm intrigued by this, and when I did a video recently about all the books on my TBR and asked you guys to pick my next reads, quite a few of you recommended this, so I do have quite high hopes for this one, so we will see. Then we've got a book that I'm buddy reading with Charlotte this month, which is You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. I have heard so many great things about this book. Who gifted me this? This was from Connor at Connor's Library Corner, gifting me this for my birthday. Not for his birthday, that'd be kind of weird. For my birthday. This is a YA contemporary about a girl who enters into the race to be prom queen. She wouldn't normally be interested, but becoming prom queen also comes with money to go to college, and that's all I've heard about it. It's also a queer romance. It's got a female romance in it. I'm really excited to read this because I've heard really nice things about it, so we will see. So it could be that one. And then it could also be Blue Ticket by Sophie McIntosh, which I was gifted in November. This was sent as an early Christmas gift from my Secret Santa. Who was it? Kristen Reads. Yeah, so I've been running a Secret Santa on Twitter and Instagram. Kristen was buying for me. Obviously I knew she was buying for me because I picked the pairs, but she chose this off my wish list. I'm really excited for this. If I'm honest, I think out of these 3, I think it's going to be this one, but we will see. So Blue Ticket, Sophie McIntosh wrote The Water Cure, which I read and really enjoyed in 2019. That was a very odd, slow, kind of quiet book, and it was a debut, and I think I gave it 4 stars, but it's definitely one that stayed with me. This is Blue Ticket, and I'm just going to read you a little bit of the blurb. So it says, Calla knows how the lottery works, everyone does. On the day of your first bleed, you report to the station to learn what kind of woman you will be. A white ticket grants you children, a blue ticket grants you freedom. You're relieved of the terrible burden of choice, and once you've taken your ticket, there's no going back. But what if the life you're given is the wrong one? So to me, this sounds, again, a bit like Hamnet. It sounds like a book that's sort of written for me because it's dystopian feminist fiction. However, I have been let down with some of those before, like Vox and what was the other one? The Power. They were 2 books I had really high hopes for that reason, and they weren't. I didn't love those. So we will see. We'll see what I make of this, and yeah, we'll see which book winds up as my favourite of December. Maybe it'll be none of these. But drop me a comment below and let me know what you think. So those are the books that I loved this year. It's been a weird year, but I have read some absolutely corking books, as you've seen. Drop me a comment below and let me know which of those you have read. Also let me know which has been your favourite read of the year if you can, or give me your like top 3 or top 5 if that's too hard, because I know it's a tough question. If you haven't already subscribed and you would like some more of this chaos, please click the button below and I will see you in the next one. Thanks guys, bye!